Happy Sunday, folks. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying your time, with whatever it is you're currently doing. But there's some big news that are happening. Obviously, a lot of eyes and the attention is out west in Alberta during the Stampede. You had Mark Carney show up and get booed. You had Poilievre show up to woo. It was interesting. And then you have Poilievre being a little sassy on the mic, saying, Mark Carney, the only reason you couldn't get that pancake figured out is because you didn't know if his elbows should be up or if they should be down. Into a host of laughter. People loved it. Social media loved it. It's been an interesting time. However, there's been some things happening throughout the country that are not really getting attention, but I think that they should. And I think in some ways it is good news and also a little bit of a, what the heck am I supposed to do about that? We're going to be talking about, well, the fact that a judge in Ontario is ordering TD and the RCMP to release files related to the freezing of bank accounts during the Freedom Convoy, specifically for one specific client. And we're going to get a lot more information on what the heck went down and why they did what they did and the methodology behind the scenes of what they did. And we'll find out, since we know it was unconstitutional what Trudeau did, and we all know Mark Carney is advocating for it. And then we'll see what's really the ugliness behind the scenes. We'll be talking about that today. And secondly, host of analysts who are kind of in the Mark Carney circles are saying, you know what, if we're going to increase spending to 5% of our GDP, I think we need to increase taxes. And well, that's exactly what you want to hear as a Canadian today. And we're going to be talking and debunking all of it today. Welcome to the Late Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. Grateful to be back on with you on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Hope you had a great weekend. If you get any value from the show, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. Really helps us to grow, helps the show, and helps get the message out to people who otherwise are looking for a different perspective when it comes to the news in this country that the mainstream media simply doesn't offer. Now let's get into a first story, shall we? Judge orders RCMP and TD Bank to release records in Freedom Convoy bank freeze case. An Ontario judge has ordered the RCMP and TD Bank to hand over records related to the freezing of Evan Blackman's bank accounts during the 2022 Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa. Blackman was arrested on February 18th, 2022 under the federal government's invocation of the Emergencies Act and charged with mischief and obstruction. He was acquitted in October of 2023, but the Crown appealed and a new trial is set to begin on August 14th, 2025. Blackman is now seeking access to records detailing how and why his bank accounts were frozen to support a charter application at his retrial. His lawyers argue the freeze was a serious violation of his constitutional rights and plan to ask the court to stay the case. The freezing of Mr. Blackman's bank accounts was an extreme overreach on the part of the police and the federal government, says Chris Fleury, a constitutional lawyer representing Blackman. These records will hopefully reveal exactly how and why Mr. Blackman's accounts were frozen. Blackman welcomed the ruling. I'm delighted that we will finally get records that may reveal why my bank accounts were frozen, he said. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, which is backing Blackman's legal challenge, called the ruling a significant development. It is believed to be the first criminal case in Canada involving a proposed charter challenge based on the freezing of personal bank accounts under the Emergencies Act. This is big news. This is important. And it's hard, at times it's a little hard. I'm even curious of the performance of this video, because people hear Freedom Convoy and it's old news. It was 3 years ago, people over it on both sides of the aisle. It's kind of like, But if you were watching it closely, if you were paying attention, you probably didn't like the idea that bank accounts were frozen just simply for maybe donating, just for simply being even in Ottawa at the time, or anything that was even peripheral to the event. Your bank accounts got frozen. This was disgusting. We hated seeing it. And then, seeing people get the Emergencies Act invoked on them and people getting trampled by horses in the streets of Ottawa. It was an ugly time. It was an ugly time. It was an ugly scene. And the people all want to know, was this allowed? And then we find out, trial goes through or a hearing goes through, finds out Trudeau was actually against the law. It was found to not have met the threshold for the invocation of the Emergencies Act, which when that happened, which was over a year ago now, the first thing that came to mind for me was this is going to open up the government to a lot of legal problems, because the fact that they said this was unconstitutional, well, this is happening now with Mr. Blackman. And if you catch it, I think the government should have left it alone. The government should have left it alone. If you catch it here, Blackman was arrested in February 2022, and then he was acquitted in October of 2023. So a year over, almost a year and a half, almost close to 2 years later. But then the Crown appealed to have a new trial set to then go after him again. This seems like an idiotic move. We found out, we know back in 2024 that the invocation of the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional. So now the Crown has to go up against that. So why? Why? You should have left him alone. As I said about my show, people have come after me. You should have left me alone. Because now you're going to get exposed more, and exactly that's what's going to happen. The Crown's going after him, and now we're going to get records coming to the surface from the RCMP and the TD Bank of exactly what happened that day when bank accounts were frozen, but specifically to this man, but we'll know and have an idea how that was applied to others. This was a serious misstep by the Crown. You should have left it alone. But now, we're going to bring this all back to the surface, and we're going to find out how corrupt you really are, how corrupt the government really has been, and the fact that the likes of Mark Carney, we saw his op-ed in the Globe and Mail saying we should have done this. We should. I support Trudeau in this. This was the way to go. He wrote that as an opinion piece in the Globe and Mail at the time. So we know that Mark Carney stands behind Trudeau's stance, and because he hasn't come out and said maybe I was wrong about that, no, he would do it again. Mark Carney would do it for 2.0. Again, part 2, he would just do it bigger, badder than ever. But this is a fascinating story and a great development. And this is really important because we were all curious, weren't we? We were curious of why bank accounts were truly frozen. It was because, well, they were terrorists. They were waving Nazi flags. You know, the mysterious Nazi flag that still couldn't be connected to anybody on the ground. But, you know, there are some people who were awfully connected to Trudeau that were able to snap a photo of that in such quick time. Odd. And the fact that we know what happened with Buttongate during the election, you know, we wouldn't put it past this Liberal government to then plant inflammatory imagery in a protest that is protesting their government. Wouldn't put it past them, likely what happened. So this is going to be interesting. It hits August 14th is the opening of the trial, and my friends, we will be following it. I'm very curious of how this is all going to pan out, the information that's going to come to the surface, and the Crown, from my perspective, is about to get absolutely torched. Absolute idiots all around. Anyways, that's that. We are going to move into our second story, which is honestly fairly fascinating. Canada should consider hiking GST, other taxes to pay for defense spending boost, analysts say. Oh, the experts. So we know what this is going to be about. This is about our spending, our defense spending up to 5% of GDP. And while analysts are saying, well, this seems like a bad idea. This doesn't seem like a good idea because we don't know where the money's coming from. We are in severe amounts of debt. We have a crazy deficit. We can't keep borrowing it. So we're going to have to tax it. Seems like a great idea. That's just the way the liberal mind goes, doesn't it? We don't know where the money's going to come from, so we can't continue printing money because that's going to be really, really bad. So we're going to have to tax it. And that's exactly the reasoning they give right here. Mr. Drummond said it's not fair to young Canadians and future generations to add so much debt to Canada's balance sheet. He noted that the fall of 2024 fiscal statement indicated that 1 percentage point of the GST collects about $11 billion in revenue annually. Some economists consider the GST among the least economically harmful taxes because taxing consumption is better for productivity than taxing income. Michael Wernick, a former head of Canada's public service, said the magnitude of the defense obligation should not be underestimated. It's a mistake to think this is a short-term issue, he said. It's going to bedevil finance ministers for the next 6 or 7 budgets and probably be relevant to the next 2 federal election campaigns. Mr. Warnick is suggesting a 2% defense and security tax, DST, which would apply when purchasing goods and services, just like the GST. It would be applied for 10 years and would be a very visible piece of public finance that Canadians would understand they are paying. Canada's GST is at 5% today, and when charged alongside provincial sales taxes, the combined rate is as high as 15% in some provinces. Mr. Warnick said Canada has more room to maneuver when it comes to raising money through consumption taxes than some other NATO member countries. The standard value added tax in Britain is 20% and Germany's is 19%. My argument is just political realism. I can't imagine a government in Canada that's going to cut old age pensions or the health transfer. This is the mentality of many. Oh, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? See, I remember this in the World War effort. We don't know how we're going to fund the war, so we are just going to tax people X amount just for a short amount of time, and we'll take it off after the war. That was called income tax. My friends, your income tax are taking huge percentages of your income now. It's not just a one-time flat fee no more. No, it's upwards of close to 40, 50, 52% of your income is being taken. And that's ugly. And so when you hear the idea of like, oh, we're going to introduce something called the DST, and it's only going to be for 10 years, and then we'll get back. I've heard this before. No, that will be going nowhere because anytime the government can find revenue, they're going to keep taking it from you. As soon as you give the government one thing, they'll take the rest of it as well. That's just how this goes and how it operates. I, my friends, will say this. Find other things to cut. You want to fund this at the 5% GDP. The problem is 5% GDP is getting the people really upset, getting them really going. The amounts that they are considering right now and how much it's going to cost the country to fund our military to 5% of GDP is not even including financing and helping with Donald Trump's golden dome. So this could be even far more. And this is the solution. How about we just find ways to tax people more? No. How about we do this, my friends? How about you start being a little bit more productive with the money you do have? Find things you're going to have to cut. Speak some real truths. Have some uncomfortable conversations. Figure out a way to deal with it and put the money away. This is what you should have been doing the whole time. However, this is the liberal way. This is the NDP. This is what progressive ideology is. We'll just find a way to take it. We will steal from you. And we'll say you're a bad person when you question us. Goes, oh, don't you care about our healthcare? Yeah, you know what? Quite frankly, I've been doing some research myself. Just because I'm curious of the conversation that's been happening about, our public healthcare system that is free, quote unquote, versus America that's paid. And there were some questions that people were having. And so I did did some digging and found out, just for kicks and giggles, if you wanted to find like one of the highest premiums that you pay on a monthly basis in the United States, and I compare that to how much I pay in taxes here, you just do the offset. Say you're going to a place, even in the more expensive place, say one of the more expensive places in the United States, which is New England. You go down to New England, depending on the state, this is just more of a generality here. However, you go down to New England, you pay New England taxes. So let's say Massachusetts is one of those. They remember Bill Belichick, former coach of the New England Patriots, called Massachusetts Taxachusetts. Just give you an idea what it's like. So you move down to Massachusetts, one of the most higher taxed states in the country, and you then try to pay for your healthcare personally. You want to hear something crazy? You are still going to come out close to $7,000 to $8,000 ahead than if you continue to live in Canada and pay our taxes. You go to one of the most heavily taxed states in the U.S. and then pay for your private healthcare at an insane premium, and you're still coming out $7,000 to $8,000 ahead compared to just living here and paying into our public healthcare system. What a mess. Now imagine going to the likes of Florida or Tennessee or down in the southern states. What the difference is compared to living here. So yes, there are places you can cut. There are cuts you can make. It's about making our systems more efficient than they currently are. It's fairly simple. And if you go down this whole rabbit hole of like, we're just going to find ways to tax our people, guess what's going to happen? You're going to continue to increase taxes here in Canada, and more of this is going to happen. DeSantis, governor of the great state of Florida, says signals support for property tax elimination in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis has expressed support for eliminating property taxes in Florida, a move that would require a constitutional amendment and at least 60% voter approval, which I'm sure he'll get. While the idea may appeal to homeowners frustrated by rising taxes, experts warn the loss of property tax revenue could have significant consequences for schools, public safety, and local governments. And that is always the argument, isn't it? That's always the argument. Oh, but how are we going to fund? You can figure it out. This stuff doesn't cost as much as you say it is. You've normalized taxing people up the butt and says, we want some more. No, we look at all the corruption happening in Ottawa. All the money just seems to disappear. It seems like a lot of that money could be clawed back, and allow people to have a tax cut these days. So you want to increase taxes in Canada? Florida's doing this. Guess what? Tennessee is also looking to do the same thing. They're looking to completely eliminate property taxes. So guess what's going to happen? 51st state, whether you like it or not. You keep increasing taxes unjustifiably and can't figure it out, more states are going to start adopting these types of laws where they're eliminating property taxes altogether. And guess what? The mass migration from Canada to the US is going to happen, and you're going to cease to be a country because you can't afford to sustain your way of life. That's just the reality. So that's why this stuff ticks me off, because I'm a proud Canadian. I love my country. I hate what it's turned into. I hate where it's at. I know it can be better. I've seen it be better. But when I'm seeing people own the town square saying we need to be taxed more, and then you see states in the US saying, we'll tax you less. Even the most left-leaning people are like, I'm going to move there. That's just how this goes. And this is where things are at here. As I said, we said it before the election. Mark Carney gets elected, Canada's national sovereignty will actually be at risk because he keeps selling us out, keeps adding stupid policy, entertaining moron analysts who's saying, you should think about this. And he will. He will, because he's trying to find money somewhere. And the idea is just to tax it. It's fascinating, isn't it? But anyways, enjoy your Sunday. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.